Our line panel this week is an all-journalist affair, and they're all looking forward to 2 months of news from Santa Fe and no sleep as lawmakers return to the Capitol. So before that happens, joining us from the Associated Press, our friend Russ Contreras. He's here from Capitol Report, New Mexico. Rob Nikolewski, he was here last week and back with us again. Another online venture, the New Mexico Telegram, our friend Matthew Reichbach. These last two guys were our co-conspirators on election night, as a matter of fact. And one of the Albuquerque Journal's Capitol crew, Dan Boyd, is back with us. Dan, the governor just, and as I say this, just as we record this, released her budget plan for the session. And one of the interesting things about this is, that's after, by the way, LFC released theirs on Wednesday. So we'll get to theirs in a second. Let's talk about the governor first. Are there any clues in this budget as to what we can expect on the eye-to-eye nature of the legislature and the governor? Is she laying out some priorities here that give us some clues about the nature of the relationship at this point?
Well, really on a lot of the issues, the governor's budget and the LFC budget aren't that different on as far as education and Medicaid, things like that. They're actually pretty similar on dollar amounts. One big thing that did come out, LFC is proposing to give state workers and teachers a 1% salary increase, and the governor says that's not in her budget, and she says she doesn't think it's good timing for that. So that could be one area where we see kind of a philosophical difference, and we'll see that play out during the session.
Or it could be a bargaining chip, Rob, something to either let go or stand on. You never know with these things, right?
Exactly, yeah, and also, 1%, it's not like they're asking for a 5 or 6% increase. Yeah, sort of echo what Dan says. Both of the proposals are pretty close to each other, and I think that's something that I think is a bit striking, because I think a lot of New Mexicans think that the two sides are, Democrats, Republicans, the executive, the legislature are constantly at battle. And even though there are some sharp elbows that are thrown, generally speaking, if on a fiscal level, these things are pretty close. I mean, they're not, this isn't like wild-eyed liberals and right-wing extremists. They're pretty much in the middle.
Right. What did you make, let's stick with you for a second. What did you make of the 13.3 for the New Mexico Reads to Leads? She had been leading up to this, by the way. Obviously, she had been talking about reading, talking about the need to have more reading and reading assistants in schools. 13.3 million is a pretty good nut, though. That's a pretty good number.
Yeah, see, and that's another misconception I think a number of New Mexicans have, is that a lot of times you'll hear the rhetoric from teachers unions that this governor is anti-public schools. But all 3 years that she's been the governor, every single time that there's been a net increase. She's asked for a net increase, so has LSC, and there's been a net increase in public school spending.
Interesting. Russell, good to see you again, by the way.
Thank you.
Glad you're back. Is there something else in this budget that catches you? I'm going to just throw a couple at you here from the governor's budget. Over $11.3 million to reward, I love this word, reward our highest performing teachers. That, to me, sounds a little at odds with the rhetoric we would hear out of this governor for the past 2 years, where the focus seemed to be on non-performing teachers and weeding the bottom out. Now seeing things about reward, about well-functioning teachers. Did that catch you as well?
Yeah, well, full disclosure, I am married to a teacher, so I'm sure that my teacher wife will love this kind of budget, although she's not going to expect a fur coat, and I'm not going to get gold teeth out of this. That did come at me, but I think it's in line to what philosophically she's been saying for a number of times, especially with ed reformers out of Florida. This station had the special on Michelle Reeves, so it does come with that. She does want to come up with some sort of structure where you're rewarding teachers who allow students to perform well on standardized tests and grades. Looking at this budget, one thing that struck me in covering education before was I was curious to know is some of these increased, especially in education, are these going to fixed costs? Are these going to, because even though we have more money this time, if you put fixed costs, it's going to stay there year after year. It doesn't go down.
Good point.
So is this something we're going to institutionalize? Is this a one-time thing? Is this raise here? Is this something to say, hey, this is all good as long as we're rosy, but if we hit some bumps in the road, we're going to have to rescind this? I think that's going to be pretty difficult. Those are some questions I'm curious
That's
about.
the committee scrum you're talking about there. That's interesting, those kind of questions. That's the kind of stuff we got to figure out. Matthew, there's something interesting at play here when you think about where Democrats have been on education, or anybody else about education, about more increases. There's been a pull from others to say, look, how much money can we throw at this? Let's pull back a little bit. We throw this money. The other side says, well, perhaps there hasn't been enough money. Richardson went through this as well, Governor Richardson back when. If something doesn't work for her on education in the next 2 years, given these budget increases, is that a problem for her? How does she wind her way through this?
Well, I think that the education increases always come because nobody wants to vote against education increases. It just doesn't look good if you vote against or if you oppose it. So I think that for the foreseeable future, we'll keep seeing increases in education and that sort of thing. If she staked a lot of her reputation on education reform. So that's going to be the interesting thing. I think not so much the funding as if she can get any of the education reform through. I think we'll probably talk about the third grade retention, and that's going to be another battle this year. So that's really on education where she's really focused her attention on, where she's used her political capital. And I think she'll continue to do that this year. The funding, I think the funding will probably end up going through without much of a debate. I think the debate will be on other issues.
Interesting you brought up social issues, social stuff. Sitting down with Sarah Gustavus, the governor, for the show tonight, she mentioned, you know, social issues. She's, you know, third grade reading, all that kind of thing. All well and good, and that sounds great. But at the same time, I'm curious where this leaves Hannah Skandera. All this. How does she come out of this? Is she still dangling here? Are we finally going to get past the point where we make her official, we anoint her? I want to get predictions from everybody on this one too, but I'll start with you.
Well, I don't know if I'll have a prediction because I think we'd have to ask Linda Lopez on that, how she feels in the Senate Rules Committee if she'll give her a hearing, because she hasn't been confirmed yet. She's still Secretary Designate, but she's basically been the Secretary. She's been running that department. She's been doing a bunch of administrative stuff that they wanted to do. They wanted to do, you know, with legislation, but the problem with that is the next education secretary can come in and wipe it all out, start over. That's why they're trying to get all of these, you know, grading the teachers, grading the schools. They want to get that done through legislation instead of just administratively. That way it can be longer lasting. And as for Skandera, if I'm going to say they're going to just ignore it for another year. I don't know if she'll ever get confirmed.
Right. What do you think about that one, Russell?
You know, as long as Martinez is governor, philosophically, she's going to have somebody there in the public education department who's going to fulfill her wishes. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. She'll still be even if she is the designate, she's still going to push those policies.
Sure. Rob, you feel the same on that too?
Yeah, I would be. If I were a betting man, and sometimes I do bet, I would say that.
But not on politics.
Right. Yeah, right. Not in this state. I would think that she probably will not get a confirmation hearing. She hasn't had one in the last 2 years. Linda Lopez, who's in charge of that, has kind of dodged whenever reporters say, well, is Hannah going to get a hearing this year, or this week, or this month? It always seems to be avoided. So that'd be my bet. But even if she's not, she's still, even if, just as Russell said, if she's just the secretary designate, she is, for all intents and purposes, the secretary.
Let me stay with you before I get to you, Dan, on another subject. But Rob, interesting in your reporting you did on the horse racing scandal down south and the doping of horses. And there was a question whether the governor was going to see, or the legislature as a matter of fact, some more money to handle this problem. And the governor's asking for $750,000. It's a lot of dough, and that sounds very serious to me. Did that strike you the same?
Yes, it did, because I wasn't sure where she was going to go on that. And the doping problem was an embarrassment for the state. There was that gigantic New York Times article that came out in the spring. To the administration's credit, the people over at the Racing Commission, Vince Maes, has done as much as he can, but in order to stay a step ahead of the dopers, they need more money. And it probably will be a bipartisan thing as well, because Mary Kay Papin, who's down in Las Cruces, the state senator, she's definitely going to introduce a bill to increase some funding and increase some testing. So I think that's probably something we might be able to see some progress on.
And people can talk about, hallelujah, we have agreement. Cross the aisle. This would be beautiful. Dan, another thing cross the aisle that could be problematic, and that is the space liability issue for the folks down at the spaceport. They are looking for this, second time around looking for this, and ironically, they're just about to write the state of New Mexico a big check, rent check for the place. So these two things are colliding at this point. Is it your sense that if they do not get what they want in this liability issue, they're gone? Or do you feel like the liability issue is going to be dealt with in this session?
Like we've talked about, I don't know if I would bet on that. I have heard that I would not be surprised to see it pass this session. I think maybe there is a little more due to some of that talk about them possibly pulling up and leaving the state. I think there maybe is a little more urgency to get that passed. I think there are some people who had opposed it who will no longer be in the legislature. That could make a difference. So you never wager anything in the legislature, but I think that. I would probably say if I had to pick, I would think that bill does get through this year.
Sure. Let's swing it to the other side of it in the couple of minutes we have left on this in LFC. I'll stay with you on this. Again, the highlights from the LFC budget, what struck you about that seemed different from where the governor was coming from, and what seems probable or possible out of the LFC budget?
Well, I think, as I mentioned before, they are similar. I think the pay increases, and also to go back to the, the education, I think I think it's clear that state spending will increase, but, there's a increase in funding and increase in funding, and sometimes even how you do that is different. The governor for education, for example, wants a lot of these targeted initiatives, the merit pay for teachers, things like that. And some Democrats, I think, would rather just put that money into the funding formula and let districts and schools figure out how to use it.
Interesting. Wild cards were on here. Any wild cards, either from LFC or the administration budget, that jump out at you here and say, wow, they're going to have to really wrestle with this one?
No, the only thing that really struck me about the LFC budget was, Mexico's really struggling economically. A lot of the all the neighboring states are doing better than we are. I thought maybe there might be a little bit more spending on the LFC side, but counters, as I said earlier, counterintuitive to the idea that, Democrats like to spend money. It was, in the words of Lucky Varela, a Democrat who's the vice chair, it's a prudent budget. Pete Campos, a Democratic state senator, says it is imperative that we proceed cautiously. It was a very cautious LFC budget, not a spendthrift budget.
Interesting. Is that your sense of it as well, Russell?
I thought so too.
Yeah.
I was expecting, especially because we did do well in terms of our energy and some money coming in through there. But it was pretty strict, so it wasn't as spendthrift as I expected, as we'd seen before.
Yeah. Matthew, wild cards for you? What are you thinking out there? It's going to be tricky, problematic for somebody?
Well, the pay raises for state workers that the LFC wants, that's probably going to be a big battle because Martinez says she doesn't want to do that. She doesn't think it's the right time.
Right.
So that 1% pay raise, which we mentioned before, that would be the first since 2008 for state workers. And then also the corporate tax cut. I think that Democrats are going to try to tie that to a tax expenditure budget. It sounds like that's something that maybe Tim Keller has already kind of laid the groundwork for, or Peter Wirth has done that. And I think that that's something we'll see as well. The tax expenditure budget, which was kind of criticized by Pew a few weeks ago, just saying, it didn't really help because there's, this high wage tax credit that all of a sudden skyrocketed because, and we don't know how much each tax credit is going to cost. So I think we're going to see tax expenditure budget, tax cuts, and then the salary.
I'm going to sneak some more time out with you on that tax stuff, because I do want to get on the table this. Is the tax issue clouded now that we've had a lot of recent reports about the amount of job loss, certainly here in Bernalillo County, but statewide as well? Something is really quite vulnerable for us right now when it comes to this. And folks have always seen this as somewhat of a panacea to get things rolling again, this lowered, tax issue. Is she a bit compromised here, given what's been in the headlines recently about this?
Well, I think that a lot of the part they're talking about, it's a prudent budget. It's less than they thought. I thought a lot of it comes down to what the federal government's going to do, because we're so dependent on federal government. We got Sandia Labs, we got Los Alamos Labs, we got Cannon Air Force Base, Holloman Air Force Base. We got all these Air Force bases and labs and all that money coming in. If the federal budget goes down, that's going to be a huge blow to the economy. So I think that's maybe why the budget was so less spending for the LFC than we thought.
There's that prudent word again, given all what's going on. Yeah.
And honestly, until Congress gets their act together, we won't really know if this budget looks good, if the tax cuts look like a good idea or not. So I think we might have to wait for that, and they can't wait because they only got 60 days.
Sure. Well said. I'm glad I asked you on that. After the break, Senator Tom Udall on the fiscal cliff, filibuster reform, and finally landing a seat on the Appropriations Committee.